As we look back over this week, we think of the boundless hospitality that has been extended to all of us by our Chinese friends.
I think it's really hard to imagine what it must have been like to go to this opera in 1987.
This was a world event. Everyone could have access to it. Everyone knew about it.
We've come a long way to be here today.
At that stage, Nixon was a figure of fun. He was lampooned. He had resigned from office under threat of impeachment.
Okay, is that enough? Is that enough?
This was really the first time that a composer, a librettist, a director came up with an opera to tell the story of such a global event.
We have been here a week. This was the week that changed the world.
John Adams was cautious about whether it was possible to make a serious opera which engaged with him as a human being.
It's not really just telling the story or trying to find a caricature. I think it's the opposite. It's really humanizing these people and trying to find a way for us to understand how they were.
If we can find the common ground on which we can both stand, generations in the years ahead will look back and thank us for this meeting that we have held in this past week.
The opera is very true to the facts of what happened, but it doesn't remain bound by those facts. So the first act is very fact-based, the big set pieces, Air Force One landing at the airport, the banquet, the meeting with Mao.
Richard Nixon, he starts by announcing how amazing he is in the first act, and with this aria that John Adams loves, news, news, news. And it's so focused on who he is as a political and public figure.
The third act really leaves the reality of what happened behind, and we're invited instead into the mind of Nixon and into the mind of Mao as they reflect on their achievements and their failures.
The contrast of that extroverted character in the beginning, also with the music, that active music, is so different from Act 3, in which you really hear this tenderness, this quietness.
It's the act which really makes this into a great opera, and to the politicians presented in it as tragic heroes, people who have noble ambition, but like all heroes in some way fail to achieve it.
Well, we don't want to see it all today. We want to have something to come back to see.
I think unquestionably one of the key subjects of the opera is the staging of politics, how politics is presented to the viewer back home, how politics is mediated, in this case through television. But of course now we experience that so often in the context of social media. I'm really excited to present this piece now, 50 years after the events depicted, as they pass into history. There will be people in the audience who weren't born when Nixon went to China. I wasn't born when Nixon went to China. For me, the events pass into history, and eventually, of course, they pass into myth. And that's an interesting place, because then we can debate what really happened and what it really meant. And that, in a way, is more interesting for opera than simply a documentary statement of what happened.